Welcome back to another episode of Home Sweet Loan with Kristen Eck. And today I have a fantastic realtor here with me, Arianna Finnane, joining us from the Nickley Group out of Orlando. And she has been in the industry since roughly a little bit before 2020, so going on about a little more than 5 years, and you've had some amazing success. And I know you're like, I don't know, you got my future on board. But you have. And I want to dive into a little bit about what you've been doing to be so successful in the market, and just a little bit of your background. So if I remember correctly, you came from education. Tell us a little bit about how your transition was.
So I was a teacher for just about 20 years. I worked in the early childhood section a lot. So that's where the majority of my teaching years were.
I have a lot of patience with that.
Yeah, well, it's organized chaos.
Yeah.
It's like, the phrase like herding kittens.
Yeah.
Like, it's just all the cats get along, everything's perfect. So I taught forever and ever. And then towards the end of my teaching career, I was teaching at a school in downtown Orlando.
Okay.
That had a lot of kids that needed a lot of help. So I had support. I think I was teaching 4th grade that year. And I had support in my classroom. And it was a guy who would sit in there and make sure nobody was getting in a fight. And one day he was on his computer like all day long. And at the end of the day, I'm kind of frustrated. I'm like, what are you doing? Like,
over there, I need help.
Yeah, like literally doing nothing. He's like, I was renewing my real estate license.
Oh my gosh, how cool.
Yeah, and that's where it started. So like that summer, I took the exam, and then I was with Coldwell Banker for a year.
Okay.
And I just worked with them, but I was teaching at the same time, and real estate's a small business.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can't do both.
No.
So
did you immediately transition, or did you kind of do both for a little while?
Well, I taught for just 1 year. The next year I was at Coldwell Banker, I was teaching. I did zero business. Like actually nothing. And then after,
like you said, it's hard to do both.
You can't do both. Yeah, like this, like you've got to be supporting your business every day.
Yeah.
And then ended up at Keller Williams in Winter Park.
Okay.
Ended up with a gentleman there, helped him do a ton of stuff. I was like his assistant for the summer. And at the end of the summer, he's like, don't go back. Like, just try it out. See what happens.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And ever since, it's just been...
Yeah, pretty much.
Uphill, growing, learning.
Yes,
that's awesome.
So much.
Yeah. Well, as we talked, I think it is always... teachers really make great realtors.
Yeah.
And I think it's because of you have to manage that organized chaos. Sometimes real estate transactions can be organized chaos.
Yeah.
Some of them aren't. A lot of them are. And so to have the patience and, organization to manage the number of buyers that you manage, which we'll talk about at one time, is really important. So a lot of those characteristics to carry over.
Yeah, it's definitely the same skill set. It's just you're putting it in a different domain, a different context, but it's the organization, it's the problem solving, it's communication.
Yeah.
Like supporting your clients, setting expectations, it's all those things.
Yeah. Now, you're part of a large group in Orlando, and so how many agents are in your office?
I should definitely know this. I'm going to say 40.
Okay.
It's somewhere between 35 and 40.
Some are full-time, some are part-time, maybe.
No,
everybody's full.
Yeah.
That's right. You did tell me that's kind of like the criteria.
That's their thing, yeah.
And that makes sense because it's hard to do both, two things at one time really well.
Yeah.
So tell us what sets your team. So you're a team within a large team.
Yeah.
How many people are on your team?
Gosh, I want to say upwards of 50. I could be wrong. So now they just opened an expansion team in Tampa.
Okay.
But we have agents, we have like admin leadership that, really steer the ship. Then we have a whole staff of transaction coordinators. We have an entire marketing team.
Yeah, they've got a really strong.
We've got a gal that just does the trainings and gets everybody going. It's full force. Yeah.
So what do you think, being a part of a team like that, how does that set you apart? What's the culture like?
Oh, I think we're the best on the buy. And by the data points, I think we're the number one team in Florida.
I was just about to say, the numbers speak for themselves, so you're not biased.
Yeah. No, but it's a really fun place to work, right? Like you go into most brokerages and it's like there's nobody there.
Yeah.
It's super quiet. You're making calls. Cold calling is the worst. It's absolutely the worst. Like if you're feeling really good about yourself, start cold calling and then you'll be humble. When you're doing it at a table with like 7 other people and you just start, right? Like you just started this business and you're all hanging out. You're getting hung up on. She's getting hung up on. They're getting yelled at. Like
it doesn't feel so bad.
It doesn't feel so bad.
Yeah.
They've got music playing. They've got a ping pong table, dartboard. Like it's a really fun place to go.
vibe. So when I came on Friday, the vibe, I was like, this is cool. This is fun.
You want to be there.
Yeah. So if you're struggling to make your calls today and you've got a group of people doing it with you, it's that call reluctance that is easy to let take over.
Oh, yeah. And like when you're seeing people every day, like when someone doesn't show up, you know, you're texting them, where are you? Right here. Like,
there's accountability.
Yeah, like let's do stuff. Yeah.
So on average, what would you say the average agent that's starting out or even not starting out but that's looking for business, how many dials do you think they're doing on a daily basis?
Ooh, that's a great question. Our new agents have a pool, we call them, of, you know, leads available. I think there's like 90,000 leads in the pool, but then you're hand dialing.
Yeah.
Right. But then we have agents who will get on mojo lines where you're dialing like 3 people at a time. They will easily do between 600 and 900 calls a week.
That's a lot. Well, I mean, but that's obviously the number of calls is what helps drive the business. Right. And so if you're making those calls, how many you're actually talking to, then how many you're actually like following up with, that kind of thing. So, I mean, that's obviously what leads to success is
100%. And for them, like when you're just starting out, like think of all the mistakes you're getting out. Think of all the nerves you're getting out, all the mess ups, like all the trip ups, all the messing up your intro, your delivery, like all that stuff. They're getting that all out of their system because then our team provides leads.
Okay.
So Tom's our rainmaker and he gets an insane number of opportunities. So once they get to those really good, high quality leads, like they've got
now they're able to convert them. Yeah, exactly. That's awesome.
Yeah.
We spoke, and when I asked you about the number of agents that come and then leave versus the number that actually stay on, is that there's hardly any turnover.
We have a super low attrition rate. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Yeah, we really have a low rate, and that's I think a large percent of that can be, you know, given credit to Tom and Jeff and Alexis. Those are our leaders. Like, as long as you're a culture fit, and the main focus of our culture is be a good person, right? Like care.
Yeah.
do the right things for your clients. Like don't just go in there with commission breath. So as long as you've got that little nugget, they're going to help find a spot for you on the team. Maybe you're not great at sales. Like, could you be good at marketing? Could you be good at as an ISA position? Right? They'll find a home for you.
I love that. That's actually what speaks to the amazing culture, and that's what obviously keeps people around. So you are transitioning a little bit in your role. So last year you did somewhere you said between 50 to 60 units.
Let's not get crazy here. It was definitely closer to 50. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Still amazing numbers. I mean, I read in NAR said that most agents closed under like 6, and some agents,
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was a really tough year, obviously, for a lot of agents. So to have that kind of production's fantastic. So congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
You're starting to transition a little bit to a team, and so what does that look like? How is that going to change for things?
No, when you say a team, you mean like support?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I will. So
a team lead. You're going to be a team lead.
Ooh, that feels like very generous. Do you mean like more of the coaching side of it? Okay. So so that is something I'm hoping to transition to. You know, probably full time by 2026. That will be one of the few gaps that we've found on the Nickley Group is that there's not a coach or mentor for those like mid agents, right?
Okay.
Like the baby agents, 0 to 6 months, get a lot of support from a lot of people.
Right.
So putting someone in the position of that, you know, not quite veteran or full-fledged veteran, but that in between space to support them in their business.
That's a very good place because they've gotten past the true, like, I know nothing stage.
Right. Yeah.
To now they know enough and really have seen probably some successes,
right.
And now it's easy to kind of, well, not easy, but it's taking them to really to the next level.
Right.
So your goal is to transition to that, and how many do you think that you'll have at one time doing that with you?
So right now I'm holding accountability with like 10 people.
Okay. And those people are that in-between phase?
They're the in-between, yeah. So it's kind of a funny spot because when I started this, the mid agents I was taking the like intermediate agents, I guess. So now I'm kind of wrapping up my work with those intermediate agents, prepping for taking all the more mid agents.
And what kind of accountability do they have to you? So obviously there's a lot of new agents out there that don't have this type of culture, don't have this type of setup.
Yeah.
What does a mid agent, what does the expectations look like for them?
They're showing up.
Okay.
They're showing up
So
to call
coming
me
into the office every single day.
every single day. And where my desk is positioned, I can see where if they're here or not.
Hello,
right?
where are
Like
you?
literally, I send a text like, "Why aren't you here?" And then I'm looking at their calendar, and their calendar's totally empty. Like, we get appointments from inside sales associates, ISAs. ISAs depend on that calendar to be up to date. So if they book this agent an appointment and the calendar's empty and they're out somewhere else, like,
Okay.
they're
What are we
sending
doing?
right.
Yeah.
So calling them out, checking their database, making sure they're setting reminders, following up with leads, talking to people, moving reminders around. It's everything from like the nitty gritty technical stuff to them calling me in the middle of the day, having a panic attack. They're at the end of their rope, like they just need some guidance, kind of stuff.
And so you're helping with the structuring potentially of transactions and contracts potentially, but also managing their day to day.
Yeah, I mean, my goal is to build their business.
Okay.
Right? Like I want them to be successful, and we get a lot of leads, right? We get a ton of leads. Tom is fantastic about that. But as an agent and as a person, you always have your phone on you.
Yeah.
And you're always picking up the phone and you're taking last minute appointments and you're going to Waterford Lakes, you're going to Hunters Creek or, anywhere in between. So my goal for them is to get yourself in a place in your business where you can put your phone down. Like you've got past clients, you've got referral clients. You can really set your schedule more yourself.
And so these mid-range agents that you are going to be working on taking on, how long do they stay with you for that, or is it based on production? How fast they grow? Right now it's
based on time domain.
Okay.
So Alexa supports them from 0 to 6 months. Then I pick them up at 6 months. Probably keep them through 12 to 18 months, and then after that, it's people who need me. So like I'll sit and do goals with a much larger population, and in those goals meetings at every quarter and then at the year mark, I can ask them like, what can I do to help you? Well, I'd love to meet every third week or once a month. So just
supporting them.
Yeah, like older agents who just want someone to hold them accountable and check in with.
Yeah, no, I love that. And you have a coach yourself.
I do.
And so
Nikki.
and they don't have the level of production to have a coach necessarily. So you're really that support for them. And honestly, it's so much about the accountability.
Right.
Showing up, and then how many dials are you making?
Right,
and
exactly.
So I mean, obviously that's almost just sales 101, but it's
right.
A lot of people come into your industry and my industry and think that they don't really have to do those activities. So that's, again, speaks to the culture of what the groups.
And for better or worse, like I've said so many times, we get so many opportunities. It's really easy to become a lazy agent.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't have to make those follow-ups. You can just pick up the phone next time and get a deal from that. But like keeping that mid to long-term business, like that's what makes a difference.
Ultimately, it's to get them out of that into the veteran stage, where they've got their own business coming into. That makes sense. So you work with a lot of, I know you do list and buy side, but you do a lot of buy side.
Yeah.
How do you manage the number of buyers that you're working with at one time? So at any given time, what would you say the number of buyers your clients you're working with are?
Like hot buyers, like ready now buyers, probably like 10-ish.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you've got another set that are you're following up with that are your nurturing.
Like they're going to be buying in 6 months, 9 months, like that. And then I'm a glutton. So like if I talk to you and we get along and you're going to buy a house at some point in time, I will stay in touch with you until you tell me no.
No. Yeah. That's awesome. How often are you following up with those people?
I have different ways. So I'll do like 1 month it'll be a phone call. 1 month it'll be a text, 1 month it'll be an email. So they kind of see me all the time, but they don't have to talk to me all the time.
Yeah.
And then I do a monthly newsletter, which is super passive, right? It goes out to everybody and then they're just seeing me.
Yeah. What kind of information do you find to be most read? Like what's the most?
I don't even know. You don't know if they're reading it.
Yeah.
Like I put it in MailChimp and MailChimp sends it out. And just for 100% transparency, I'm not good at this stuff, right? Like I was a teacher, but it was early childhood, so like they didn't care what it looked like.
Well, obviously you're good at it because your numbers speak to that. So you may not think you're good at it, but
I mean, what I was gonna say is I just go to Etsy.
Yeah.
Right? Like go to Etsy. You don't have to invent the wheel. Someone else has developed a newsletter that's fantastic, and all you have to do is
plug and play.
Yeah.
Yep. And plug and play what you kind of wanted.
Yeah, so I put like my favorite restaurant, or like if I have clients who do something super awesome, I'll put a picture. Like I have a gal who just ran a marathon or the half marathon. I'll put her in there.
That's awesome.
But the biggest thing, but the biggest thing is like market data. So the monthly data
Everybody wants to see that.
Yeah, everyone wants to see that.
Okay. And so now you're also to a point too where you've got your past clients that are coming, and so they're part of that, and they're seeing you, and that's a lot of what people say is they can't remember who they used in their first transaction. Right. And so by staying in front of them, that's obviously key. So that's awesome. To have those resources, to have those systems. It's really about the system.
It's about the systems. Yeah. Like make your life easier.
Yeah, and if you don't have those in place, you're not gonna be able to stay in front of them. Right. So that's awesome.
And make it as easy as possible. Like when I first started with the newsletter, I was trying to write it myself and design it myself, and I'd always come up with an excuse to not finish it and not get it sent out.
Yeah.
But when you have something that's done and all you have to do is change 3 or 4 little squares, that's so much easier.
It's all about making life easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. If it's too hard of a task, it's not going to get done.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome, and thank you for sharing a lot about the systems you're using and how you're managing that process. Okay, so I want to go back to converting leads. So we've talked. Obviously, your team gets a ton of leads. We've talked about that. What are some strategies that you as an agent do to convert leads, and then how are you coaching these other mid agents to convert leads? Because it's all about what you're saying and your approach that's really obviously working.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I started off and I was doing cold calls or the Mojo line, the biggest thing, so when you start, right, they give you this list of questions, a script, right, that you have to go through. And then there's the forward question that really helps you dig in and get to know the buyer or the seller a lot better. But what I struggled with was that it sounded like a script.
Yeah.
When I said it. So that, and you don't sound like yourself. So one thing that I did was I just took those things I was supposed to touch on and just put them in the notes section of my phone. Just one word, so that I forced myself to develop my own speech
language.
Yeah, exactly. So in those initial phone calls, the only thing I really want to do is build rapport.
Okay.
Right? I want to get to know the basics of the home search, but I want to call you in a week and you're going to pick up the phone. Right? I don't want to be annoying or interrogate or pushy. I just want you to like me enough to pick up the phone so that when I talk to you next, we can keep this search going, keep things going.
So goal 1 is rapport.
Rapport.
Yep.
Just connect with them.
And I think that's, I know that's a big piece of what a lot of people miss up front.
Right.
They go right into, and then the clients totally
if you forget something, the worst thing that's going to happen is you call them back and you're like, hey, Kristen, I totally forgot to ask you this. How many square feet do you need?
Yeah.
Do you need an HOA? You can go back and ask those questions later. So that was the first step, was just build that rapport, make sure they like you enough that they're going to pick up when you call. Set the appropriate reminders, right? You don't need, if they're looking in a year, you don't need to call them back every week. Check in, send listings, then touch base after that. Incoming leads, it's different because I feel like those phone calls can be very transactional, right? This person is calling you with a direct mission. They want to see this house. They want to know just this and this.
Yeah. So you want to take care of that initial request first.
So I would hang up the phone and I'm like, ugh, that was very cold. It didn't feel very warm and fuzzy. So after that, and I think almost every agent on our team does this, is you send a follow-up text. Hey, super nice to talk to you. This is my Zillow profile. Check it out. See what you think, whatever. Then I do, immediately after that, I send them an intro email.
Okay.
With my personal philosophy, a link to my profile. I really focus on, and something I'm passionate about is I work with everybody, right? I'm not going to discriminate in any way, shape, or form. So I want to make sure that message is heard and felt. So I send that intro message, an email, and then just connect with them how they need. If I send listings, hey, I call them back or I text them, hey, I just sent you some listings. I want to make sure you can look at them. Let me know if you can't see them.
Yeah.
Then a week later, hey, what'd you think? How'd they look? What do I need to change? I'm here to make your life easier.
Sure.
Right? And so and I tell people up front, my big thing is communication. I am going to try to hit the mark for you every time, but tell me what you need. Yeah. And then I'll do it.
Yeah, that's very engaging versus you doing all the talking and, kind of just shoving it down them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And that's obviously, that's what they feel. So you want them to feel that they are cared about and that you care about their interests and what they're looking for and building rapport and trust and all of that, because everybody knows you can go out on the internet and see a house with, after the changes with NAR, a little bit less, it's a little bit harder to do, but with any agent at any time.
Oh, it's not hard at all. You can very much see it.
Yeah. How did the changes with NAR, because you are buyer heavy, how did that change your approach or with anything you're doing?
No, nothing really.
I love that.
They have to sign the touring. Well, we use a touring agreement up front.
Okay.
Which I just break down for buyers. Like, it doesn't obligate either one of us to anything, because I feel like that was a real positive side of the NAR thing. Like, I don't have to work with these people, and you never did, but now that buyer knows it, like, you got to be nice too.
Yeah.
So the touring agreement doesn't.
Or I might fire you.
Right. Exactly. The touring agreement doesn't obligate either one of us to anything. We're just seeing houses, and then I bring the buyer broker agreement. In the future, when we get ready to start writing contracts, this is what we're going to transition to.
Okay. Yeah. How long is your touring agreement for?
It depends. It depends on the buyer. If I know they're looking for a while, they're not in a huge rush, I'll probably do 6 months.
Okay.
If they're in town, I met a gentleman this last week who's in Brazil. He's going back down. So we just did like 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Very quick.
And pushback on getting those signed?
I had pushback once, and I didn't show him the house.
There you go.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's also a huge plus on your side. If you're not willing to sign this agreement for a week,
well,
what?
And that one time they had an agent, and their agent was out of town. And then she called and she's like, hey, this girl's not showing us the house. And then the agent's like, oh, I can show it to you this afternoon. So it's like,
it helps weed out like who you really want to be showing homes to. Yeah. Otherwise, you're driving around showing that stuff to everybody. I had a buyer recently. He was working with 4 agents. He never signed anything.
Oh, jeez.
And I mean, that's the part of the business that is really hard, but that helped with the changes. So I'm glad to hear that hasn't been too hard for you.
No, I think if it was a huge challenge for you as an agent, you were doing something wrong from the start.
Got it. And what about negotiating? I mean, again, this is like a little bit different of an angle, but what about negotiating compensation? Have you found it hard?
No, that couldn't have happened at a better time. Right? Like, those forms came on, inventory was going up and up. We hit like peak inventory in December, and now it's kind of like balanced a little bit more. And I tell, I'm very upfront with my buyers and let them know the expectations and the situation. But at the same time, if this house is not offering compensation, I promise you, there's 4 other houses that are offering compensation. So it's not in your best interest as a buyer to pay my compensation here, right? It doesn't make sense. This house is just as nice. It's just down the road, 5 minutes away. It doesn't make sense.
I agree. And it's also about getting strategic and how you're putting your offer in and all that.
Yeah.
So, interesting. Okay. So how do you approach, so what's the approach with a first-time home buyer?
Sure.
Because that obviously always looks a little bit different than what somebody selling and buying might look like. What does that look like that's different for you?
Well, for first-time home buyers, I feel like people are obviously buying a house is anxiety-inducing, right? Going into financials, right? Like sharing that, like that's a huge, I do it all the time. And when I did it, it like made my hands sweat. Yeah. So that's huge. But I think if people can shift their mindset and understand that when they start that home search, they're building a team, right? Yes. Like, they're building a team with their lender, with their partner, with their agent. Even if you're buying in 9 months, find those teammates that are going to be there with you for the long haul. But that's the first step. Talk to a lender early so that then you can guide them. Hey, you got to pay this off. Don't do this. Do this. Do this. Yes. Let's get your credit where it needs to be.
Everything where it needs to be. I call it getting on the path to home ownership.
Yeah, like, start those steps early. So I think that's huge for first-time home buyers is start getting used to the idea, the vernacular, the things that you're going to hear, the things that you're going to do, and then find an agent you can trust. Yeah. Right? Like, the first thing I share with my buyers when we go into a house is, I'm looking for the stuff that's going to cost you money after you buy. Right. Like, square footage, bedrooms, like, we can find that anywhere. Like, you're going to spend money. I promise you're going to spend money on this house in 6 months. Let's try to minimize that as much as possible.
Absolutely.
So find an agent who has enough experience, or if they don't have the experience, they've studied enough to know what things they need to look for, right? They've got a great mentor that can teach them, okay, when you take a buyer to the house, you should be looking for this, this, and this. Because every contract that we write is supposed to be as is.
Right. We're not assuming that the seller is going to fix all these things.
And that's not my style, right? We're not going to nickel and dime a seller for little things that the buyer can change later. So go into the house, let your agent have that critical eye. Make sure your agent's objective, doesn't have a horse in a race. Mm-hmm. Like, they just want you to find a great spot. So I think getting prepped, finding that team, and then making sure you're looking. The only thing you can't change on a house is location. Yeah. everything else you can manipulate.
I love the team approach,
Yeah.
honestly, because I think it is one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle that first-time homebuyers miss.
Right.
They are constantly looking for the cheapest rate, which I get it. Rate's important. Rate, it drives payment. Rate's important. But just somebody who's giving you the cheapest rate may not be the right team member for your team.
Yeah. I had a buyer a few months ago who tried to get pre-approved, and I talked to the lender, and she's like, she didn't know the difference between a pre-qual and a pre-approval. And then she's like, oh, well, he's supposed to send me the rest of his bank statements. And I'm like, how am I writing an offer for this person if we don't even know?
Yeah.
Like, that's a huge red flag for me.
Or, and I get it sometimes on the other side where they've already been to another lender and they're coming to me and they have no idea what their payment's going to look like at the price point they're looking at. And they are shocked when they hear that this $400,000 house is going to be, $3,000 a month. And that's like way out of their budget, right? Yeah, and so now you've been showing them homes, or the agent's been showing them homes that are really not in the realm of where they want to be. Even if they can be there, they don't want to be there.
Right.
So having the right team is obviously very important, whether you're a first-time home buyer or not, obviously. But your first-time home buyers that need that extra support and that warm hand-holding and all of that and guidance is very important. So tell me about how you manage your schedule. So, obviously you've got a lot on there. I know you've got family, obviously. You've got children. You've got a lot of dogs. We talked about your dogs. You've got agents, your mid-agents that you're holding accountable, and then you've got your own business.
Yeah.
Well, how are you managing your weekly schedule so you're not spending, 15 hours a day working?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely don't. I don't spend 15 hours a day working.
Very unhealthy.
Yeah. I did that once. There was a time where I was working all the time. And genuinely for like the new agents, those first 2 years, like your partner needs to be on board. Your family needs to be on board because you are literally building a business. So you put your head down and you work for 2 years, and then you come out and see them, and everybody gets to enjoy all the great stuff that you're doing, but that's your focus. After I finished that, like, I didn't want to work anymore. Like, I was so tired of it. I didn't want to pick up the phone. I didn't want to do this and that. So you really have to be careful. So that's a big thing I try to teach my agents now, is setting boundaries.
So I was just about to say, setting those boundaries.
Yeah, like set the boundaries hard. But personally, I try to hold my call block sacred, right? Like, I really try to hold that. My husband gets to go to his office 2 days a week because we have a pack of dogs. I try to be home those 2 days, and I get a lot more done when I'm at home.
Well, yeah, you don't
than at the office, right? Other than that, I'm at the office for call block is when I try to be there. It's different hours, different days of the week. And then besides that, I have certain days, like every Friday, I have either accountability with my people, or we'll do like a small group training. So I know that those Fridays are like allotted for that. Yeah.
Now, if you get a showing request or a new client, what I tend to see people do is say, oh, I'm not going to, that's the time they want to see that's during my call block. I'll not do call block today. How are you managing when those things come in?
I don't see that as much, to be totally honest. I'm just thinking about it. Like, here's the thing. Okay. So, and this is what jams up a lot of people, right? Like, if your call block is 3 hours, and you get a showing in the middle, well, then call block's done.
Okay. Right. That's my question.
That's not how it works.
Yeah. Okay. Because that's what I do see. I see some people, I think there's, I guess, different philosophies. Some people are like, that's their sacred time. They're not moving it.
Yeah.
So it's got to fit outside of that. And then I see some people say, okay, I'm done. Do you re-pick back up?
Yeah.
Are we moving like that to later in the day?
Yeah.
So it gets done?
It will get done, right? Like, we have our CRM tells us when our reminders are overdue. So that's like an anxiety point for me. So it's going to get done. If I have someone, and it doesn't happen all the time, where I have to take someone who wants to see a house like during this time. Yeah. Right? If it's someone I've been showing, I can kind of guide them around to better times. And a lot of my buyers work regular schedules.
Yeah.
Right?
So they're not reaching out.
Weekends and evenings or afternoons. But something that's huge, and that I remind my current people, like my agents now, is chunk it up. Do 20 minutes here. Go to show a house, sit in the parking lot somewhere else and make calls. Like,
That's a great point.
Take advantage of the little time blocks and don't have it in your mind that if I can't do it sitting down for 3 hours, it's
not going to happen.
Right.
That's a definite good shift of the mindset, because you can make calls anywhere. You can make calls while you're driving to your appointments, to be honest with you.
That's how, when I was starting my business, that's what I did.
And
I would sit there and make calls from house to house and appointment to appointment.
Yeah, so instead of doing that Facebook scroll and,
Yes.
all of that, you can spend that time to get your calls in.
Yeah.
So, and that counts as your call time, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're checking out those reminders. The call block is to give you guidance. This is really for you to get your business going.
Yeah. So time blocking is obviously very big.
Yeah.
It's something that I attempt every day to stick with some time blocking, but it is easy to derail. So,
it is easy to derail.
Yeah. So having somebody that holds you accountable with that is obviously key. What other suggestions do you have for newer agents or agents that are doing a lot of buy side, that are working with a lot of leads? What would be maybe 1 or 2 tips that you can give that would say set them apart?
Yeah. I mean, my calendar is everything. Like, if it's not on my calendar, it's not happening. 100%. So have your calendar straight, right? And then just get the stuff done. I think it's the biggest thing. Like, don't have that mindset that either it happens now or it doesn't happen at all. It's really, how bad do you want it? Right? Like, how bad do you want this business? How bad do you want the business to grow? Like, that's the biggest, what's your why?
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest motivator.
Yeah.
Like, find your why. And then, like, when I first started, I had 3 kids. I did not have an income. So my why was
support my family.
Support my family. Like, that's a good why. And that and anxiety keep you going pretty quick.
And everybody's why is so different.
Yeah.
So talk about it, put it out into the universe as, what's why you're doing this, because then people can also help fold you accountable.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, you're not alone in this. Like, if you're part of a brokerage or a team and you feel alone,
you're in the wrong place.
Spot. Yeah, you got to find somewhere people support you and push you.
100%. I love that, and I actually love the culture that your group has.
Yeah.
Because it is a lonely world out there when you're by yourself.
For sure. And those offices are like silent. Like, it's so quiet. I would never want to make calls. I'd be so depressed.
I know. When I walked into your office and there was music jamming and lots of great, just people bopping around, I was like, this is a cool place to be.
It's a fun place to be. Yeah.
And that's a great point. If you feel like you are stranded on your own, trying to figure this out, find a different place. Because that's not how it is everywhere.
No,
so
it shouldn't be.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and joining me. I am excited to see how you evolve into coaching.
I know. I'm super excited to see that too. Let's see what happens.
No, you're going to do great. Obviously, that's a lot of your teaching background coming in.
Yeah,
and
for sure. Yeah.
Coaching is very rewarding and a great place to be. And I know you'll continue to do your other business and manage it. So congratulations on all your success. Thank you for coming in.
And
thanks
for having me. I appreciate it.
I'm going to be watching you and seeing how you evolve. And I'm excited to see it. Holding you accountable. That's right. Thank you again.
Of course. Thanks.